Quit Like a Millionaire, No Gimmicks, Luck, or Trust Fund Required, by Kristy Shen and Bryce Leung. Picture this: a 5-year-old girl playing in the most horrifying playground you can imagine. Not a park with swings and slides, but a medical waste heap in rural China. She's digging through used gloves, soiled gowns, and discarded syringes with her friends. And no, they haven't lost something. They're hunting for treasure. When your family survives on 44 cents a day, a store-bought toy isn't just expensive. It's fantasy. So this little girl, whose hands should be holding a doll, is searching for discarded rubber bands to tie together into a jump rope. That girl was Kristy Shen. And here's the plot twist that sounds too good to be true. That same girl who turned medical waste into toys became a self-made millionaire at 31, walked away from her job forever, and started traveling the world. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, what's the catch? Did she win the lottery? Invent the next viral app? Marry rich? Nope, none of that. And that's exactly why her story matters. Today we're exploring Quit Like a Millionaire, and this isn't your typical money book. It's a roadmap showing how someone transformed crushing poverty into complete freedom without any gimmicks, lucky breaks, or a trust fund. It's proof that where you start doesn't have to be where you end up. Kristy Shen and Bryce Leung didn't just write a guide. They lived it, tested it, and documented a step-by-step system that took them from the bottom 1% to the top 1%. And the secret they discovered: it's something nobody teaches you in school, at home, or even in those fancy financial advisor offices. Here's what I promise you'll get from our time together. You'll understand the 3 mindsets that separate the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy. You'll learn the surprisingly simple math behind figuring out exactly how much money you need to be free forever. And you'll discover that the path to financial independence isn't about working yourself into an early grave or living like a monk. It's about understanding a few straightforward rules that, once you see them, will completely change how you think about money, time, and your life. This isn't some manifest your millions nonsense. This is a real, proven blueprint, and it begins not in a corporate boardroom, but in a place of profound scarcity. To really get how to quit like a millionaire, you first need to understand what having nothing actually feels like. For Kristy Shen, this wasn't some philosophical exercise. It was her childhood reality. Growing up in rural China in the 1980s, her family of 3 survived on what amounted to 44 American cents per day. Let that sink in for a second. At that time, a single can of Coke in Canada cost about $1. 1 can of soda could have fed her entire family for 2 days. This kind of upbringing doesn't just teach you to be frugal, it completely rewires your brain. Kristy calls this the scarcity mindset. When you don't have enough of something, whether it's food or money, it becomes your singular obsession. Everything else fades into the background. Her father survived the Great Chinese Famine, and he'd tell her stories about a time when his only wish in life was to feel full just once. He survived on bitter melon and, at one desperate point, was saved by a friend who shared half a rotten sweet potato. That act of kindness could have gotten his friend executed. The memory was so powerful that sweet potato became one of her father's favorite foods forever after. This mindset, this bone-deep understanding that resources are precious, got passed down to Kristy. When her father immigrated to Canada for his PhD, he sent her a musical birthday card from a dollar store. She did the math immediately. $1 could feed her and her mother for almost 2 days. That card became the most precious thing she'd ever owned. Later, when she finally joined her dad in Canada and he took her to a toy store for the first time, she couldn't let him buy her a $5 stuffed bear. $5 was a week's worth of food for her cousins back in China. Instead, she picked a toy from the 50-cent sale bin and made him send the rest home. This scarcity mindset, born from genuine poverty, taught her 3 core lessons that would become the foundation of everything that followed. First, money is the most important thing in the world. Second, money is worth sacrificing for. And third, money is even worth bleeding for. Now that last one might sound harsh, but when you're poor, money isn't about luxury or status. It's about survival. It's literally the difference between eating and going hungry, between having shelter and being homeless. As a child, Kristy learned that careless mistakes with money meant people went hungry. But here's where the story gets interesting. This mindset, which most self-help gurus would tell you is limiting or negative, actually became her superpower. It forced her to develop what she calls CRAP, creativity, resilience, adaptability, and perseverance. A fitting acronym for everything she had to wade through to gain these skills. When she couldn't afford a Barbie dream house, she built one from cardboard boxes she found in a dumpster. When she couldn't afford cable TV, she discovered the library and fell in love with books and writing, which would eventually make her an author. Here's the lesson. Constraints aren't always weakness. Sometimes they're exactly what unleashes your ingenuity. This ability to spot value where others see trash is what Kristy calls identifying invisible waste. Western culture is drowning in it. We toss food because it's oddly shaped, clothes because they're last season, and electronics because a newer model dropped. We're stuck on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. We buy something new, get a quick hit of happiness, and then our brains adapt. We return to baseline, and suddenly we need to buy something else to feel that rush again. Kristy experienced this firsthand when she landed her first engineering job. Suddenly she had money, and she developed a brief but intense addiction to Coach purses. The first one felt incredible, like she'd finally made it into the middle class. But the second one, not as exciting. By the fifth purse, the feeling had completely evaporated. Her brain had recalibrated. She was chasing a high that kept shrinking, but she noticed something fascinating. While the joy from buying things faded fast, the joy from buying experiences, like travel, didn't. A trip to Rome was just as thrilling the 10th time as it was the first. This led to a profound insight. Not all spending is created equal. Some spending brings lasting happiness, while other spending just creates an endless cycle of wanting more. Understanding this distinction is your first step off the treadmill. As she navigated this new middle-class world, she held tight to the lessons from her past. The most important one came from her father's journey. During China's Cultural Revolution, he was forcibly removed from high school and spent 10 years doing back-breaking labor. His only escape route was education. When the National College Entrance Exam was finally reinstated, he knew this was his shot. He studied relentlessly and, against impossible odds, got in. For him, education wasn't just valuable, it was literally life-saving. This belief got drilled into Kristy, but she added her own strategic twist. She realized that not all degrees deliver equal value. Her passion was writing, but when she crunched the numbers, a creative writing degree just didn't make financial sense. The average writer earned barely above minimum wage. So she did something that flies in the face of the most popular advice given to young people today. She didn't follow her passion. Not yet, anyway. Instead, she followed the math. She created a simple formula called the Pay-Over Tuition Score, or POT score. It calculated which degree would give her the best financial return on her investment of time and money. The clear winner was computer engineering. It wasn't her dream career, but it was strategic. The plan was beautifully simple. Follow the money first, then you can do what you love later. Get the order wrong, and you risk a lifetime of financial struggle. This single decision to prioritize financial stability over immediate passion turned out to be one of the most important choices she ever made. Armed with a high-paying degree and that powerful scarcity mindset, she and her husband Bryce launched their careers. They lived frugally, not because they had to anymore, but because it was wired into their DNA. They saved an astonishing chunk of their income, often over 50%. But soon they encountered the biggest trap of middle-class life, the belief that your house is an investment. Everyone around them, friends, colleagues, even their own parents, was obsessed with buying a home. It's treated like a rite of passage, the ultimate symbol of success. But when Kristy ran the actual numbers, she was shocked. She discovered that once you factor in all the hidden costs, like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, broker commissions, and mortgage interest, the real return on a primary residence is often close to zero, sometimes even negative. Over 9 years on a hypothetical $500,000 home that appreciated generously, she calculated that nearly 98% of the financial gain would get eaten by these costs. The house wasn't an investment for the owner. It was an investment for the banks, the government, and the real estate agents. This led to another core principle from the book, inspired by Robert Kiyosaki: poor people buy stuff. The middle class buys houses. Rich people buy investments. This was the turning point. If they weren't going to sink all their savings into a house, what were they going to do with it? This question sent them down a rabbit hole into the world of investing, where they discovered the real secrets of wealth. They quickly learned to be skeptical of the financial industry. At her first meeting with a bank advisor, Kristy got pushed toward a high-fee mutual fund. The advisor couldn't explain how it worked, who managed it, or why it was better than alternatives. She realized that the real bank robbers weren't wearing masks. They were wearing suits, quietly siphoning away wealth through fees that seemed tiny, just 1 or 2%, but compound into hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. The solution they found was beautifully simple: index fund investing. Instead of trying to pick winning stocks, which is like betting on a single horse in a race, you buy an index fund, which is like betting on the entire casino. You own a tiny slice of every major company in the market. Some go up, some go down. But over time, the entire market grows as the economy grows. Best part? Because there's no genius fund manager picking stocks, the fees are incredibly low, often 25 times lower than managed funds. This single strategy, choosing low-cost index funds, beats 85% of professional, high-fee fund managers over the long haul. So they had their investment vehicle, but how much should go into stocks versus safer investments, like bonds, and how do you protect yourself from a market crash? This is where Bryce's engineering background became invaluable. He introduced Kristy to modern portfolio theory. It sounds complicated, but the concept is straightforward. You can control how bumpy your investment ride is. Stocks offer higher returns, but a much bumpier journey. Bonds are smoother, but deliver lower returns. By mixing them, you choose a risk level you're comfortable with. The most powerful element of this theory is something called rebalancing. Say you decide on a 60-40 split between stocks and bonds. If the stock market soars, your portfolio might shift to 70-30. Rebalancing means you sell some stocks, selling high, and buy more bonds to return to your 60-40 target. If the market crashes, your portfolio might become 50-50. You then sell some bonds and buy more stocks, buying low. This simple mechanical process forces you to do the exact opposite of what your fear-driven instincts scream at you to do. It makes you buy low and sell high automatically. And they got their trial by fire immediately. In September 2008, right after they invested their entire life savings of $100,000, the market crashed. The great financial crisis hit, and they watched their portfolio plummet by 30%. Kristy was in full panic mode, her finger hovering over the sell-all button. But Bryce reminded her, go back to the research. They stuck to the plan. They kept buying as the market fell. And because of their rebalancing strategy, they not only recovered all their losses, but did so years before the overall market recovered. They'd survived their first crash and emerged stronger. But even as their wealth grew, a dark cloud was forming. Kristy's high-pressure job was turning toxic. Layoffs were constant, hours were brutal, and stress was unbearable. The final straw came when she watched her mentor, a man who'd dedicated his life to the company, collapse at his desk from a heart attack. That night, she had her first panic attack, and she reached a new, urgent conclusion. Money is worth bleeding for, but it's not worth dying for. She'd escaped the scarcity mindset only to fall into the hoarding mindset, the endless, pointless accumulation of money with no goal other than more. She needed an escape route, she needed an off switch, And that's when she discovered it, the magical number that would save her life. It comes from a famous study at Trinity University, and it's called the 4% rule. The study found that if you withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio in your first year of retirement, and then adjust that amount for inflation each year after, there's a 95% chance your money will last at least 30 years. In fact, in most scenarios, you end up with more money than you started with. This was the secret. This was the off switch. You don't need infinite money to retire. You just need a portfolio that's 25 times your annual expenses. Why 25? Because 1 divided by 0.04, which is 4%, equals 25. So if you spend $40,000 a year, you need a portfolio of $1 million. That's 40,000 times 25. If you can live on 30,000 a year, you only need 750,000. Suddenly, the goal wasn't some vague idea of being rich. It was a concrete number. Kristy and Bryce calculated their annual expenses, $40,000. Their target was $1 million. They looked at their savings. They were already at $500,000. The math showed they were only 3 years away from freedom. This shifted them into the final mindset, the freedom mindset. The goal was no longer hoarding money, but using money to buy back their time. But what about that 5% chance of failure? What if you get unlucky and the market crashes right after you retire? This is what Kristy calls the wall of fear, and she designed 2 brilliant safety mechanisms to break through it. The first is the cash cushion. This is a separate savings account with enough cash to cover your living expenses for a few years. They chose 5. If the market tanks, you don't sell your investments at a loss. You simply live off your cash cushion and wait for the market to recover. The second is the yield shield. This is the income your portfolio generates naturally through dividends and interest, without selling anything. By temporarily shifting their portfolio into slightly higher yielding assets right before retirement, they could generate a significant portion of their annual income from this yield alone. Their annual spending was $40,000. Their portfolio yield was about $35,000. This meant they only needed to find $5,000 per year to bridge the gap. Their 5-year cash cushion didn't need to be $200,000, which is 40,000 times 5. It only needed to be 25,000, which is 5,000 times 5. This made the safety net incredibly achievable. But there was one final puzzle piece. Most of their money was locked in retirement accounts like a 401k, which you're supposedly not allowed to touch until you're 59 and a half. So how do you access it early without penalties? This is where they uncovered the legal loopholes the wealthy have been using for years. The most powerful one is the Roth conversion ladder. Here's how it works. After you quit your job, you roll your 401k into a traditional IRA. Then, each year, you convert a small amount, just enough to stay in a low tax bracket, from your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. The IRS has a rule that says you can withdraw any converted amount tax-free and penalty-free after 5 years. So you create a ladder. In year 1, you convert enough to cover your living expenses. In year 2, you do it again. You continue this for 5 years. Then, in year 6, the money you converted in year 1 becomes available. In year 7, the money from year 2 is ready. You've created a rolling pipeline of tax-free income you can access at any age. Armed with their magical number, their safety nets, and their escape plan, they did it. In 2015, at age 31, they quit their jobs and bought one-way tickets to travel the world. And what they discovered was perhaps the most surprising secret of all. Traveling the world wasn't more expensive than their life back home. It was actually cheaper. By using a strategy called geographic arbitrage, spending time in beautiful low-cost countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Portugal, their annual spending stayed at the same $40,000 they'd budgeted. They could get a 4-star lifestyle for a 1-star price, a delicious plate of pad thai for $1, an hour-long massage for $10. They realized they could travel the world indefinitely. The book tackles every fear and question that pops up. What about kids? The authors show that the staggering cost of raising a child is largely based on consumer choices, not necessity, and that many families have achieved financial independence with children. What about healthcare? For Americans, the Affordable Care Act subsidies can make insurance incredibly affordable on a low retirement income, and for travelers, expat insurance costs a fraction of U.S. plans. What about losing your identity when you lose your job title? This, Kristy argues, is actually the greatest gift of all. You're finally free to discover who you really are when you're not defined by your work. For her, it meant finally pursuing her childhood dream of becoming a writer. She got a book deal for a children's novel. The advance was tiny, nowhere near enough to live on. But it didn't matter. Her portfolio was paying the bills. She could pursue her passion purely for the love of it, without the pressure of needing it to survive. She'd followed the math first, so she could follow her heart later. The journey from a medical waste heap to world-traveling author was complete. And the final lesson she shares is that you don't even need $1 million to break free. Using concepts like side FIRE, having a small side income from a passion project, or partial FI, working part-time at a job you enjoy, you can dramatically lower the amount of money you need to escape the daily grind. In the end, Quit Like a Millionaire isn't really about getting rich, it's about getting free. It teaches that money isn't this complicated, scary thing only geniuses can understand. It's a series of simple lessons that, when combined, become a superpower. A superpower that lets you trade money for the one resource you can never get back: your time. As we close the pages of Quit Like a Millionaire, what stays with me isn't just the brilliance of the financial strategies. It's the profound human story at its core. It's about resilience, about transforming a past filled with hardship not into a scar, but into strength. Kristy Shen's scarcity mindset is a powerful reminder that our greatest strengths often emerge from our deepest struggles. In a world screaming that we need more to be happy, her journey proves that true wealth isn't about abundance, it's about having enough. The most powerful lesson in this book, for me, is the complete reframing of money itself. Most of us are taught to think of money in terms of what it can buy. A bigger house, a nicer car, a fancy watch. This book teaches you to think about money in terms of what it can earn you. Time. Every dollar you save is a piece of your future life that you're buying back from your employer. When you see a $100 dinner not as a meal, but as several days of freedom, your choices start to shift. Not from deprivation, but from a deep desire for something far more valuable than any possession. The book brilliantly demystifies finance, taking it out of the hands of slick-suited advisors and putting it directly into yours. The idea that you can beat 85% of professionals by simply buying the whole market through a low-cost index fund and then just leaving it alone is revolutionary. It's incredibly empowering. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to obsess over the stock market daily. You just need a simple, disciplined plan. So what can you do right now to start walking this path? You don't have to wait for a six-figure salary. The journey starts with a single step. First, make the invisible visible. For 1 week, just track where your money goes. Don't judge it, don't change anything, just observe. Like Kristy, with her closet experiment, you'll be amazed at the invisible waste you discover, the subscriptions you forgot about, the daily purchases that add up. Awareness is the first step toward control. Second, try the POT score calculation for a career you're curious about. Whether you're thinking about college or learning a new skill, take a few minutes to look up the cost of education and the median salary for that field. Run the simple pay-over-tuition math. This isn't about letting money dictate your life's purpose. It's about making informed decisions. It's about ensuring your passion doesn't trap you in financial servitude. And finally, open a low-cost investment account and start small. Even if it's just $20 a month into a simple index fund. The goal isn't getting rich overnight. The goal is feeling the power of your money working for you, even just a little. It makes the whole concept real and removes the mystery. You'll be taking your first step toward building your own freedom fund. That was a summary of Quit Like a Millionaire by Kristy Shen and Bryce Young. We've explored the core ideas today, from the scarcity mindset to the 4% rule. But a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map can show you the path, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the trail, seeing the views yourself, feeling the sun on your face. The real power of this book lies in the detailed stories, the step-by-step calculations, and the infectious spirit of freedom that leaps off every page. If any part of this journey has sparked something in you, a hope, a question, a desire for something more, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just an education. It's an invitation to take control of your own story. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Each week, we journey into another life-changing book from the world's most successful minds. Let's keep learning and growing together. Thanks for listening.